As some of you are aware, I just spent some time in my home country, which is India, and this time visited the northern part of India, where I actually lived when I was young for quite a few years. But even beyond that, visited with my family the lesser Himalayan mountain range, as they call it, the Gharwal mountains, which is in the state of Uttarakhand. And we have some of our sacred places there, what we call as our holy places. Haridwar and Rishikesh, and beyond that, there's nestled this quaint little picturesque town in between this Himalayan range, right in the middle. This town called as Badrinath. It's actually the name of Lord Vishnu. For us, who is the symbol for the preservative aspect of life itself, living. So, in fact, when we go to Haridwar, the name Haridwar itself means that Haridwar. Hari is another name for Lord Vishnu, and Dwar means the door. So from there on, we are entering the door of his abode. So it was quite a synchronous trip in that way. As I've also shared before, this living is pure synchronicity at every level, because the I am identity, the self, lives its own reality. The outer as a reflection of that which it is. And such is Shakti, such is nature. So as I was sharing, what was actually, coming up, and especially on this trip, I'm kind of inspired to make this video on what happened during that trip. That again, we're already consciousness. There is nothing that is uttered here that we do not innately already know, right? But this play, as we say, of playing in the realm of illusion, we say, right? Ignorance, where consciousness, that which we are, shrouds itself, veils itself, so that it can play, it can awaken to its truer reality, right? So it can discover all of that. That is what this allows for, because there is nothing outside consciousness. Nothing. Right? At one level, at the level of one mind, as we say, Shakti, right? Mind is knowing, right? And that which we are ultimately is unknown as the Shiva aspect that cannot even be spoken about, pure consciousness. And even at the level of Shakti, one mind, all knowing, we are, we may say, everything, everyone. And then Shakti lives as infinite worlds, dreams, minds, stories, ideas. This is the play. And this mind, that whether at the collective level that's being lived or at the individual level, is simply a small, tiny flavor of experience of that which we are. And of course, all is dynamic, so really cannot be put into words. But I'm called to share about, my experiences in on this trip, because as we know, we all know this at the level of words, the level of stories. If you've been on this journey, find yourself as a seeking mind, we at some level know all of this information. And we also have experienced where we know something and then there is a dropping down, of seeing of something with clarity. Right? There's like a deeper aha at the level of the body, at the cells. You're living it from a deeper self. Right? So this is what kind of happens. We got to share about it. A little bit of which I did share um, when I created videos from when I was there, but kind of bringing it together in this video. So the first, of course, is as we take off from Haridwar and Rishikesh, and we are moving up, into the mountains, we drive along River Ganga. Now, this is the sacred place of the rivers. This is where Ganga flows, and then even beyond that, on the top, where we go beyond Badrinath, Mana village, and above this is at the Indo-Tibetan border. We have Mana village where we have Saraswati, the source of course, Saraswati and Ganga and all beyond that. But this is where, the space from where these rivers are born. So, of course, I was thrilled that synchronously I found myself there at this place where Ganga was. And as I sat by her banks, it was her message that was experienced at a deeper level. So, as I sat by the banks of Ganga, her message, was felt very deeply. And she reminded again of this key thing, and this is the core, right? You really begin at the foundation of it because then the rest of it is seen with clarity. And of course, as always, the invitation is to enter with the beginner state of mind beyond a sense of agreeing or disagreeing or understanding or not. So to be in that Zen state of mind, and that of course allows for depersonalization of everything. And then moving to our own resonance. So I always share Shakti, that this mind is unique. She radiates. She's neither boring, neither normal, nor predictable, right? And we, as a third density body mind world, have had a masculine dominant energetic gross level experience that only sees at the surface level, right? And therefore believes that illusion that it sees on the perceived outer, as if there is one reality and then there are many. So we tend to, if you're coming from the same mind, we tend to see from that same lens in that sense. But Shakti, of course, dances as mind, but that which she is, her innate nature, lies beyond simply the mind that we are familiar with at this level. That is just one of her flavors, as Kali would say. This is just one flavor of time, space, condition. So, as I said, by Ganga, her message was that, the flow of Ganga, and it was really a very, very delightful surprise this time to see the rivers, which I really want to share. Because as the masculine mind has lived this dense experience, right, of looking outwards, and then that's why rituals are needed. All of this is needed so that the mind can anchor to a deeper truth, because otherwise it cannot see and it might be lost in illusion. That is the reason the Vedas eventually came actually even into written form. It is only for the mind that lives as Dwapar Yuga, as I am duality, as if it's separate from the life and the world that it is. Right? So for it to remember its true nature, you know, because it sees itself separate, so naturally sees itself as smaller, less worthy. It dances in the realm of worthiness and deservability and all of that. So that's why all these rituals were in place. But what has happened naturally, again, all natural phenomena, every nature of mind will dance the dynamics of its own self that allows for that experience. So, when naturally the mind is dancing at this dense level of separation and fragmentation, it's a belief that it lives in a world that is of matter, right? Material, dead world. That's why it sees and lives only as the past, which is long gone. There's no life there. It lives as concepts, right? So we are identified with the body, matter again. We look at the body, that's why never holistically, right? If you're totally in this gross level mind, if you're identified, it's only what my five senses see that becomes the reality. So it doesn't have a holistic perspective, whether it's towards the mind or the body, the mind, or at the world, right? We know all of this. So naturally the effects of that are what are experienced in the outer world. So, in the recent times, really, even when the rituals are being done and all of that, our rivers been deeply polluted, as we know, right? We've the nature of the mind is the nature of our Mother Earth, and how we treat her, right? And our reality. So the waters are polluted, the air is polluted, everything is polluted, right? It was such a delight and a confirmation that, of course, this mind did not need, but to really see that the rivers have been cleaned up, even beyond the rivers, the cities have been cleaned up, and Ganga, you know, was clean, because when she comes in, she brings in a lot of the natural sediments and the minerals that are necessary for the body. So really, when you sit on Ganga, even at the five sensory level, it was a delight to see this time. That in the recent years, there's so much good work that really is being done. So I was sitting there and sensing into this and appreciating and acknowledging the seeing of this shift that is already happening. And her words that I want to really share is that she reminds us that every state of being, every state of consciousness, every state of mind lives its nature. She's living all of it, She lives all paradigms, all states of mind. So, at one level, the third density, body, mind, world that is living, lives as a separate self and lives those dynamics as a doer, and therefore has to taste the dynamics of that playground. It has to do, as long as we are primarily identified as a person, separate self. There is nobody outside of it that can change it. As long as that is our I am, we are going to do. The doing is going to happen. That is the flavor we are going to taste and sense. Because all there is the mind. The vibration of the mind, the frequency, lives itself. It is and lives its own perception, its own experience, and its expression. All of that is determined by that. right? So it's going to do. When we are primarily identified and vibrating at that level, we will need to do, right? The dynamics of that is effort. Um, I've shared a lot of this. I'm not really going to go into that too much, but as we know, the dynamics of I am born, identified as the body, I'm going to die. That is its experience. It lives only as linear time, growth at the level of body, age, moving from here till there, even the psychological effects of that, right? Starts a project. It's very, very attached to the outcomes, right? To the goals. Natural phenomena. It strategizes, it plans, it does all of that, right? And its experience is of ambition, that it is the cause. It lives that personal ambition, feels the fulfillment of I made it happen. All these beautiful dynamics of the third density, body mind world. And of course, every state of mind, because if we are fully conscious, then we are consciousness itself. That's a different state of being. We cannot play. Every realm, that's why it's a dance of consciousness itself, uh, ignoring, becoming unconscious, which ultimately, that's why we say, is an illusion, because all there is consciousness, right? But it's an illusion that allows for that play. And that's why there are every state of mind plays the dynamics of pros and cons. So the pros naturally of a person are how beautifully that we relate, right? And the cons of it, which I've shared before, is of course what we are seeing that is coming to surface, right? The ways of our being in patriarchy, consumerism, all of that, that the way that we move to do when we believe that we are separate, right? We don't realize our true nature. So naturally that is going to happen. So at that level, naturally, we need to clean Ganga. There is doing involved. But what she was really reminding is that we stand at this critical threshold, this phase of transformation. If you want to put it in time, right, for the personal seeking mind, then we can say these years that we are living from 2023 till about 2027 and even 2030, right? Even the personal mind lives the dynamics of astrology. This is not for the true self, which steps out of this personal karma. I've shared this in my Kali video about that, and I'm going to put the link down there as well. But if we are speaking in this context, then we will see these years. This is a very potent, powerful, liminal space, which is like a gateway. It's a cosmic gateway that we are moving through. And how available and open we are. That's why surrender for the invitation for the personal mind, how open we are, will determine what we will perceive, and then therefore from that, what choices will be made. I want to name something again. There's only one divine being living. It's already happening. It's already happening. This is simply for the seeking mind that questions, that is coming forth. The invitation that we're living through these times. Of course, as the true self, we are timeless. We need to be able to hold this paradox, right? Because we are living this paradox right now. Why? When we open our eyes in the morning, five senses are still saying there is a body, right? We're moving in the world from here till there, right? So we need to be able to hold this. And that's why this is the paradigm of stepping out of Dwapara Yuga into Treta Yuga, from the or paradigm into the and paradigm. There is something that is very, very significant and very critical for us to see in this and paradigm, is that while it is and, right, I'm both. I'm consciousness that is the formless, that is dancing as the form, the unknown appearing as the known. All of this, right, I'm both. That is true. The primary is consciousness. So for the seeking mind, primary is our inner world that reflects as the outer world. That is primary. Right? What we see, this dynamic of when our eyes open and we see this world, what is happening in the world is very, very relevant in both these paradigms, right? It's happening in the world, very key. But that comes later. That is secondary. That is set within the primary. So we need to be able to hold this. So that's why she says at the level of the personal, of course, doing, cleaning, all of that is required for the river. But she's inviting us at this time, as we move through this, to awaken to that reality, that which we already are. And this paradigm is different, this state of consciousness. This is an invitation, that's why, to first and foremost pause. See the nature of the mind. Know thyself. Because it's every state of being from which the doing arises. When the personal is not aware of this, we move too quickly to do. And that is a natural phenomenon. See, at every level, she reminds that we are so steeped in this condition of there's something going wrong. It's so subtle we don't even know it. There's nothing going wrong. When there is one consciousness, one divine, we believe, let's say at some level we say there's one God. And then to believe that there's something going wrong is contradicting itself. And the only thing that contradicts, that has us experience the contradiction, is this realm when we are identified with the separate self. What we call as identified only with the outer, the ego. Right? That lives contradiction, a natural phenomenon without which we cannot taste the flavors of it. Now she's reminding of this. This is the great awakening. It's not happening at the level of doing, because it already is. We are awake. We are aware. This is not something we can do or become. So that's why flip. It's the opposite. Be. She invites, that's why be, which is feels so counterintuitive to the seeking mind. This is really coming up because of so many conversations with these empowered, powerful activist souls. When we move from the personal identity, moving, right, the goodness of our hearts to do something, whether it's for the self or to change in the world, we move. If we move quickly in our identity as the separate self, then we will find ourselves yo-yoing between feeling overextended, we're going to feel exhausted, and we'll need to take time for self-care. That's not, she's reminding us and inviting us, that is not needed. All is the one divine. That which we are called to do cannot be amiss. So if this resonates, this is the invitation. what we need to do in the world, what we are called to do, will be done through us. But it's the state of being that is the key. The state of being, if it's a person, its doing arises from itself. So its perception is also from its limited, fragmented idea. It does not see the whole thing. It is here, limited seeing. And therefore, its personal karma, its dharma is lived in that realm. That's why to pause this paradigm. This paradigm, that's why, is the flip. It's the opposite. And this paradigm, that's why, is the state of mind that is effortless effort, Wu-Wei, the way of the Tao, where she says that the doing automatically happens. From the outside, it looks like effort is being done. Because this is kind of like the myth that the mind that is and lives the illusion of the person does not see. So you hear a lot of narratives. If you don't do, it's not just about being, right? In that sense. But this state of being is different. As in, when we take the time to see, instead of our attention being on what is observed, right? Looking at the objects, that is the masculine, five sensory way. It faces outwards. And flip it and turn it inwards and see the nature of the one that is observing. This is kind of really what unravels everything. Because everything is the lens through which we see. That is what perceives, and that is what is going to decide, choose. If it is limited, then it lives in this paradigm. The solutions that we are going to come up for, whether for ourselves or for the world, we're still playing in this paradigm. We'll face the same problems again and again. And this paradigm is the invitation right now. So to take the time, give ourselves the permission to go within. She says, from here, this state of being is where it is effortless. Now the doing arises in and as alignment on the behalf of the all, because the identity is the all. It's not lost in the illusion of separation. So this is her invitation, and it was the visual that was offered really was so clear and beautiful, because the river, as we know, is a metaphor for the flow of life, right? So the river was flowing, and she says, to put it in simplistic terms, she said, instead of trying to clean the garbage, the mind that lives this says, we have taken so many generations, so many centuries to pollute our waters and our lands that it's going to take so much time to clean it up. That is because we live and perceive the world and the self at the level of matter as a reality. That's denser. Their doing is king or queen, one may say. More like king. It's masculine, dominant, right? But what she's reminding is, at the level of consciousness, see my flow, right? When we dump garbage in her flow is such that she clears it. So she's saying, just see that at the level of thought, this is what the deeper invitation is, right? Level of consciousness, because that's what this river is metaphor for. She says, as a person, when we're identified as a belief, it is natural that we will play in the realm of psychological ways of dealing with the mind, of therapy, which is, mind you, I want to be very clear, extremely useful for when we are identified as the person. We need to look at every belief. We need to look at every thought, because we are living as that lens as a person, which itself is a belief, a condition. And then we need to root out belief after belief after belief. She's reminding us now that that is the most tiresome way to know thyself. You never know thyself through that, because the self that which we are does not live in that realm. That's an illusion. This is the self. She says, just see. We don't need to go into thought. All we need to do is see that we are awareness that's noticing in all these thoughts and beliefs. That is the awakening. So instead of doing, that's why her invitation, be for a little bit, be. And then see the nature of thought. This is what is meditation. Let's see the nature of thought. And she said, if you don't take your personal interpretation, especially if it's negative, right, and dump that garbage as truth in a natural phenomena when we are unconscious, when we do that, right? Dump it into our consciousness. If we just were to pause, we don't need to clean anything. Every moment arises afresh. These thoughts, these beliefs have no power over us. They get their power only from the power that which we are. I am. It's our focus on that thought that is making it alive and real for us. Allow. That is why that which we are as the true self, we say, is unconditional love. What does that mean? Allowing. Allow everything to be. In that allowing, there's a loosening. Untether for a little bit from the narratives of the world. Body, conditioning, psychological I, world, same thing. Untether from all of that for a little bit. Simply be and observe. And you will see. All this is simply dancing. If you were not to go take this thought, make meaning making. So what we are doing is we are taking the same mind that is creating the garbage and then trying to clean up the garbage. That is why this psychological I lives its own cycle loop. It lives it regurgitates. And every few years, centuries, decades, you'll see the same problems arising. True solutions cannot be born from the paradigm that lives as the problem. We know this. It's only our solutions, what we seem as our solutions, if it's the same mind, will create a solution that is a new face of the same problem. So, this is the invitation. Just pause. Just stop adding, dumping interpretation. In fact, eventually, even we are at that point right now, any kind of thought, even positive, because that keeps us anchored to the range of experiences of the person. We are still tethered to the personal way of thinking, smriti. We are living as memory. See, this is all vibrational. As long as we use the intellect, the thinking mind, the masculine energy is here. It's even at the level of the body. You can see this. It's much more than this. There are many ways to see this. But as I've shared this before, it's not the whole embodied, full embodied. I think we are not a complete portal. We are only from here. So naturally, energetically, this is energy. It's a constricted, restricted way. So even at what constricts us at the negative, when we put a negative interpretation, and a better word for that is in ways that we can feel is limiting, right? Not serving us. this is even more constricted. But even when it's positive, when we interpret positive, we're still living in our known mind. And the known mind is teeny tiny tip of the iceberg. That's all it is. And this vibration is of the personal realm, right? Of the known intellect. So it regurgitates. It still lives in its known mind. And so that's why we live as a personal karma. The positive mind will come back with the positive karma. The negative mind will come back. It's simply phenomena. Simple phenomena. That's why moving through an unprecedented, exciting times, this paradigm shift that we're living through. Cannot compare it to the times that were, that this realm lives in. The past is an illusion. The future is an illusion. The only thing that is real and true is the now, present, presence. I am awareness. It is in the I am awareness, as the I am awareness, that everything dances. That's an invitation. So become aware. All these words, every video I say this. See, information is necessary for the mind that lives in form. For it, information, intellect, these many words. The invitation to simply be. Allow all these words to only bring you to the clarity and the seeing. You can only, as the known mind, come to this doorstep. Beyond this, the known mind cannot proceed. That's the invitation. Become open to surrender. When we don't pick the thinking mind, then we simply are. Reality is right here. It's not interpreted. We meet what is in front of us right here. The personal mind has no idea, innate intelligence. This cannot be a concept, right? So nobody else can tell us what this intelligence is uniquely going to move as if through this body and mind. No idea. And that's why the personal mind, this is like jumping off the cliff, flailing in mid-air. Because living as the I don't know. That's why the personal mind needs to build faith. Trust. I am life. Leap. Life does and easily supports itself. This is an invitation, if you can sense really, Ganga was saying, really want to live a life of an adventure, to really know what is possible. The known mind will never know what is possible. Its possibilities are limited to its own knowing. You can sense that. That is the invitation, the exciting invitation. Right? So this mind then, when we let go and we are present as the true self, we are being. That's why we move, right? What to the known mind seems like unpredictable. We are the unknown. There is no need to grasp, to know, to plan, to have an agenda. Every moment reveals itself. We simply are. We become this transparent lens, glass. and then we move through. The moving happens. It's both, right? As awareness, we are not moving. It's the Shiva Tattva, the unchanging awareness that which we are. And we are one with life, experiencing all that is simply happening. That is what she's inviting. And then as alignment, then this is what the personal mind doesn't see. It says, if you're going to be, how will I do? Right? This is the power. As presence, when we move as alignment, our doing is aligned. It arises from that. And every then unique subjective awareness that we see as person is innate intelligence, uniquely flowing, dynamic, working as a perfect puzzle. It's a perfect piece of the puzzle. This is the invitation. This is aligned doing. This is moving as choiceless awareness. So this was her invitation. That you don't need to clean me up. See the flow of my nature. Cleans up on its own. And even this is at the level of time, right? Because for flowing, we are still seeing, right, the mind that is connecting from one point to another. What she's deepening and inviting us into as the true self. When there is no mind that does not linearly connect, there is no flow. Even if this moment something is dumped, the next moment is fresh, there is nothing there. It is only the mind that carries the past stories, that brings it into the present, carries it as if into the next moment. It's the nature of the mind. Otherwise, every present moment is a clean slate. Absolutely clean slate. Every moment a beginning and an ending on its own. Whole. That is our true nature. Wholeness. Every moment a natural, beautiful cycle of giving and receiving. Whole. That's the invitation. Effortless effort. Whatever needs to be done will arise from it. And we will know that when we move as innate intelligence. We do not need to struggle, strive, effort, figure out. All of that are the natural dynamics and play of the personal thinking mind. Allow this journey to be an easeful one, playful one. With this, she's bringing up something I think which is very, very key in the recent conversations that have been coming up. When we see all the past garbage, that's why that is arising in our world, that we are noticing. And many a times we notice this and we feel helpless. We feel overwhelmed. What do we do? How can we help? Trust where you find yourself. What is possible to do, how it is possible to help, do it. But it is never ever called at the expense of your own health or energy. That is not how consciousness works. Trust the rightness of where you find yourself. Your blessings, the energy that moves from your heart is equally, depending on how you see it as consciousness, if not more, even more powerful to hold the space, to heal that is coming up, to be seen, to be named. Trust that our worrying, our suffering, and which is natural, I want to name that. That's the goodness of our hearts. Consciousness is one. Even when we live in separation, it's one. We deeply feel. But to waking up and to knowing that if today I can just utter a prayer, that is more than enough. If today I can contribute in some way, that is enough. If I find myself there and there's something I can do, that is enough. Allow at the end of the day what is being done, what has been done, to be enough. Just wanted to share that because that was coming up a lot, collective field. What we are seeing right now, that's what Ganga reminds us on the surface, is the past. And that past also has served us. When we bless it, thank you. Now we are able to see. This offers us clarity. It has played a very important part. In fact, when we don't see it, we are unconscious, we are still living it. When it comes up, when we are aware, we can first and foremost bless the seeing of it, because that offers clarity. Now we can live from our more deeper self, the clearer self, the sovereign self. Now our decisions will be different. Our choices will be different. That is the invitation. We cannot move forward without truly blessing the past. And that is why acceptance, ease, that is the way. And wherever we find ourselves, however we are experiencing this, is perfect for that moment. Trust your own knowing. Trust where you find yourself. So this was her message for Ganga, that was coming up. And the second aspect of that, of course, she was saying, how when we are living at the level of form as a person, we naturally live the dynamics of location, space, time. We think that we need to go to these, what we call as sacred places, right? To experience that energy. We are waking up right now to that which we are, which is spaceless, locationless. She says, where is it that I am not? What is it that I am not? These are simply a play at the level of names. She was like, we don't need to be in any place, right? There is no place as sacred. I am everything, the sacred and the profane. So wherever we find ourselves, because we are moving into Age of Aquarius, this is the invitation. Water and sound. These two things are what we are anchoring into. They are going to be the portals through which we can experience. And in my videos ahead, I'm going to be sharing more and more practices about that. Sound. That is the first emanation as Om. Manifested consciousness, Pranava, Om, same as I am, reverberated from the unmanifest, that which we are. That is one way to harness, and we know this, that's why the vibration frequency at the level of music, sound. And second is water itself. She is the form, she is the rasa. She is the feminine, fluid. To become water-like is the invitation. As Ayurveda also knows that, right? In the holistic thing, you'll see her faces appear everywhere. In Ayurveda, we say, the essence of what we eat, the rasa, is what is assimilated and radiates as the ojas, the masculine that projects. The illumination that we see, the light that we talk about, is the love, liquid love, soma rasa, That is what we are. So that's the invitation, level of water. So she says, we don't need to run. We don't need to be concerned about polluted water or all of that, nothing. Because again, I say, whatever dances on the top, that which we are is eternally wholeness. Purnamada, Purnamidam. Come to the core. That's her invitation. Come to the root of it. We are dancing in the branches with the beliefs, what is seen in the surface, trying to fix at that level. Her invitation is come to the root. That is what sustains. That is what rises up as the tree. That's the reflection. This is what was there in the Bhagavad Gita. That's why flip. See the one that observes. That is the root. Know thyself. So that's why here she says the nature of water itself, that which I am, is untouched. We know that. No experience determines anything about that which I am. I am the awareness that experiences everything, but is one that never changes. That is the invitation. So, she says, wherever we find ourselves, this can be an absolutely powerful practice, right, that is needed for the personal mind, right, to come into the center, is that drink. All waters are sacred, wherever you find yourself. Everything at the level of manifest consciousness is liquid. The flow of life is waters, sacred waters. Nothing is outside of her. So take a drink, a glass of water. You're drinking. It's the state of consciousness with which we do that determines everything. Nothing on the outer. So drink the glass of water, however, state of consciousness, as if you are drinking sacred waters. Whether you call it Ganga, whether you call it any other name, or maybe don't even name it. This is her invitation. So she was like, you don't need to be in any location. Untether from the outer needs. We don't need any of these. All practices, rituals, all are for the Dwapara Yuga mind. Very much needed at that time. Simply permission slips. Right? All practices to come back to the being, that state of being that which we already are. And that is needed when we are at the denser level. That's why her invitation this time was for the personal mind. Instead of seeing what do I need to do, rather ask, how am I already this? Flip, shift. This allows for the seeing of what already is. The masculine mind, five senses, is the tail end. It is a reflection, this world, everything. By the time it is seen, it's already over. That which is arising new is the feminine. That's why the invitation to come into the body, stay in touch with the body, the breath. This is what we touch upon on the classes that give us as the pranayam. It's not the typical pranayam that we do. It is this integrated, feminine, the dreams, the ideas that are born from this. That was her invitation. So I want to kind of bring it all together the way that the transmission was experienced and interpreted by this mind. The second thing was state of consciousness, which I've already been exploring with. But at the outskirts of Badrinath, there's a little town called as the Mana village. And there is the cave of this great sage, the Ved Vyasa. He who wrote many other epics, but other than that, one of the one that which we are very familiar with, the Mahabharata, within which comes the Bhagavad Gita that we are very familiar with, right? The Song of God, where Krishna shares with Arjuna on the Dwapara Yuga battlefield of the living of the I am duality, two sides, opposing sides. That's the play. So Ved Vyasa narrated that to Ganesha. It's actually a fun story. You might find that on the internet. I'm not going to go here. But it's about how Ganesha then says, to Ved Vyasa that you cannot stop the story. If you stop, I will stop writing. You have to keep narrating. So anyway, so when we go to Mana village, we walk up these mountains, quaint little village, very cute, with these beautiful people. And you go to the Ganesha temple, and then you go to the Ved Vyasa cave. I've shared a little bit about this in one of my previous videos, but to bring it together, it was again synchronicity. I walk into the cave, we sit there for a little bit, right? This is the cave that where Ved Vyasa was, and of course the mind thinks that this is the ancient sage who lived here at one point and wrote this. And it was amazing to see that generally when we enter, you have this pujari and this altar and all of that. They don't generally say anything. At least in my experience, I've not seen. They're generally quiet. You go there, you take your prasad, which is the consecrated food, and then you take the aarti, from the light, and then you come out. But here, funnily, the priest, as we entered, mentioned these few lines. And he said, "You think you are here as if to see this cave where an ancient sage lived once upon a time." And he said, "Look deeper." And he invited us to actually take a look at the facade of the cave, the rock. It had all these striations. And I'm not really very sure, but definitely from what was immediately around me, the facade of this, the texture of the rock that this cave was made of was very different. It had all these lines. It was like the leaflets of a manuscript. And he said, "You think this is a rock? If you call a geologist, he will tell you everything about the rock, naturally so. Look deeper, even at the level of matter that he was pointing at." He said, "These are the manuscripts on which Ved Vyasa's wisdom is written. You think he's no more?" So what he was inviting into was already what was being experienced. That consciousness eternally is. Nothing births itself or dies. We know that energy simply transforms. And this is what was deeply felt in experience I want to share, which is very relevant for the state of being which we are living as right now. Consciousness is. Every state of consciousness exists right now. This world is an amalgam of states of consciousness. But it's not just the world in the way that we see at the level of matter. That's how the masculine mind will see it. Every state of consciousness is available right now. It is us. It cannot be otherwise. And of course, if the soul has come in to experience this, right? So sense the resonance of that. It's not about the personal mind in that sense. The soul will naturally feel that. So every state of consciousness is. Actually, nothing can be said about that. Manifested consciousness. Anything we add on that are just simply words. Is now. See, with now we brought in time. But You know what I mean? It's available right now. When we are sharing here in the field, we're all accessing into a state of consciousness together. That which we are. There's nothing apart from that which we are, consciousness. So Veda Vyasa, consciousness, is not just in the cave, but available to us. We are the living Vedas. We start living as Shruti, right? As a person, form, that's why it lives as Smriti. It needs the written Vedas. It goes by that. Scholarly, it needs the mantras, it needs what. This is spontaneous. This is how our rishis, yogis, yoginis, mystics, seers, living as Veda. Every word that comes up is a mantra, divine word that arises spontaneously from being that which we are. That's the invitation. It's a absolutely powerful invitation. The known mind cannot play in this realm, cannot know. And it's a slower process. That's why she says surrender is this thing, because otherwise we'll parse it through this. The known mind, everything. Reality cannot be known. So that was the invitation. Name something here. I want to bring it, because many ask, bring it to a more practical level. It's already happening. And I'll share with you how it's happening and sense into this. We know this already. Whenever we read a book, any book, right, we think after we read the book or whatever, we think it is me, the reader, reading this book written by this author, which is another person, whether they're alive or not, whether we read a book of Ramana Maharshi, Paramahamsa Yogananda, or Sri Yukteswar, whatever, right? Or we're reading a murder mystery or horror, whatever we might be reading. This is how it is interpreted. See, every state of mind will experience and put in words the way that it is, right? It lives its own thing. So as a person, we naturally think that at the level of form. But this is actually different at the level of consciousness. When we read a book and we're lost in those words, that resonance that we feel, we are that state of consciousness. There is no border. There is no boundary. There is no limitation. We are already doing this. We just don't know. We are not aware when we are primarily identified as a person. Natural phenomena. Because that's the play of separation. That's the play of form. When we read a book, we become the book. We become that state of consciousness. We are one with it. We are not apart from Ramana Maharshi's state of consciousness. We are it. That's why, right, we say flow. When we become one, the being and doing come together. I am duality lives with this. In between is the time-space condition between the identity. Observer, observed, observing. All of this. This is the dynamic of the third density body mind. This is closing that gap. One, being, doing, one. There's no time. Right? When we become, that's the state of flow that we experience when we do things that we love. When we are one with our project. When we are one with our singing, one with us. We are the dance. We are the song. We are the project. We are that state of consciousness. We are Paramahamsa Yogananda. We are. That's why when I share, right, I say Ganga speaks. We are there becoming one with the flow of the river. I am Ganga. I am Kali. But the I am, that all is. There is no separation. I am Durga. I am Parvati. All these are simply as we already know this, archetypes, right? That help us, allows us to play as these flavors of energy. The source is one, the non-known, the unnameable, the unknown. That's the invitation, right? So so it's instant. We're already doing it. So this is for the seeking mind. Again, if you think this sounds way too far out, because I hear this so often. Some can do it, some others can do it. If it resonates deeply for you, if you're here even listening to this till this point, there is something there, right? You wouldn't even see this beyond the 1 minute of the video. There's something there. You're already it. We're already doing it, right? This is such a practical way. We can see that. That is why for the personal mind, we see become conscious. Sometimes we go watch movies, we do, something, and we think it's nothing. At the level of the personal mind, that's why the power of storytelling, right? These stories can either limit us, bind us, or liberate us. Why? We are meeting states of consciousness. That's why when we go for a movie or we hear a story, we start weeping. Why? There's no disconnection. Disconnection is an illusion. We became one with the other state of consciousness. Their suffering is our suffering. Their joy is our joy. It's one and the same. That's what we experience. That is why for the personal world, the power of movies, the power of storytelling, that is how we can harness, right? It's both. And that's why the intention, very key to see behind. That's why for us always is a resonance here. Because stories, films, all of these are states of consciousness feeding us. It's happening at a very subtler level, even we don't know. If we are unconscious, we take on that as the belief. We don't even know that. That's why resonance here, awareness. When we do that, then we can see deeper what is being offered behind. Because the intention behind these stories, these films, that's sensed. Because it can work both ways. Both ways. Nothing inherently is, that's why we say, life is at that level meaningless. If it's being interpreted by the mind, it's the nature of the mind that gives it meaning. How are we seeing? How are we perceiving? What is determined by the clarity, right? By the nature of the mind. That's the invitation. So we're already doing this, right? Through our books, through our films. All the world, that's why, is symbolic. That's why no mind, even if you're living in the same house, your closest ones, no mind is experiencing the same world exactly the same way. It's both, right? Of course, at the level of physicality, we are probably in the same room. We are probably doing the same things, sharing the same food. But we are more than that. The way we see the world, the way we perceive that depth. And that is our true experience. We think experience happens outside of us. Even at the level of person that looks at the inner and the outer. If you say experience happens outside, don't realize all of that which truly is experienced is within. Happens within us. That's the invitation. States of consciousness. So the invitation that was truly, and that's the place to sense, become aware. Everything is a state of consciousness. When we are aware, then we can see. And while at the personal level, because we have to hold the paradox, at the level of our dance as form, right? When we open our eyes, we are in the body. Sacred boundaries are required. This is not about ooh la la kumbaya at some level, right? In that sense, the oneness, sometimes everything. This play of limitation, this play of sovereignty, individual, sacred bound, all are required. It is needed for us to function, right? This is discernment that we can see. Boundaries as in that naturally arises as viveka, as discernment. Because everything is uniquely dancing. What serves, what doesn't. Innate intelligence moves like that. It's required. What I'm inviting us into is to see possibility, that which we are, that is our innate nature. This comes later, the personal comes later. That which we are has no boundaries, is unlimited. That is why for the personal mind we invite it to say, imagine. It's inviting us to a deeper self. Imagination has no boundaries. If you look at our dreams as well, right, we know this. In the dream, there are no borders. We create the world, we create the people, we create ourselves. Only when we wake up, we say, oh, it was all in my mind. It's exactly like that. That is why in our culture we call this the waking dream. Invitation is to wake up in this dream, in this illusion. Not by rejecting and denying it, because we are only rejecting and denying ourselves. To wake up is to play consciously. That's an invitation. And that every state of consciousness that we feel a resonance to is open and available right now. Not only right now, it is us. That is the invitation. We've heard of Akashic records, right? When we are identified as a person, we imagine these Akashic records to be somewhere there, like a library where everything is stored. All that has been, all that is, and that will be. And we say, I access Akashic records. It's the same language that is used when we say we channel, right? The I channeling the higher guides, higher energies. There is no separation. Consciousness is the Akashic records. And we are that. The guides, the ascended masters, the angels, the gods, the goddesses, the devas, the devis, they're not apart from us. That's the invitation. They are us. As long as there is a gap between that which we believe we are. And between this, we will experience the dynamics of that condition, the distance of that. We will dance the dance of unworthiness, deservability, victimization, always feeling lesser than. Because we have taken ourselves apart from that which we are. There is only one. To believe that we are apart from that, except for this play, which we realize as the illusion that allows for it. But there's nothing outside divinity. All is divine. That means to live embodied divinity, we need to own ourselves as Shakti. We need to own ourselves as the divine. We need to wake up to our true nature as consciousness. That is the invitation. As long as I see another outside, as long as I see the world to be separate from me, I will live the dynamics of that separation. Every state of mind dances, experiences, perceives, expresses that which it is. This is the liberating power of Shakti. This is the invitation. I also wanted to, at this point, beyond the Mana village, there's also where Saraswati is flowing. And in our culture, we know that Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, these are called as our three sacred rivers. What is outside is inside. Yatha Pinde Tatha Brahmande. These rivers are not just outside. This body belongs to Mother Earth. What happens at the level of Mother Earth is happening in the body. So, Yamuna is the masculine, Ganga is the feminine, Saraswati is the Shushumna Nadi, the Kundalini rising, where we are being reminded, we're waking up, coming into wholeness at the level of relativity, becoming, right? That which we already are. That's why we are experiencing. We're simply pure experiencing at the relative level. That which we already are. So in the next video, I'm going to share a little bit about Somarasa, that which we are, River Saraswati, her message. Because the shift has already happened. Hear this again. The shift has already happened. To opening ourselves to seeing how has it already happened. Saraswati is flowing again. Goddess, she's reminding us. The source is the feminine. The feminine was never suppressed, can never be suppressed, because she is the truer reality. Everything dances on Divine Mother's lap. Naturally identified as the masculine self, the narratives and the languaging comes across as such. Because that's the experience. The feminine has to forget herself in order to dance this masculine dominant experience. She sees waking up to her truer reality. It's impossible for a denser illusion to force itself on its own truer reality. That's an impossibility. And the reason we need to wake up to that is otherwise the narratives of the masculine mind will recreate the same thing again. Waking up to that the feminine was never suppressed, can never be suppressed. She is the source at the manifest level. embodied divinity, Devi, Shakti. That which we are, I am. Swadharma, Swatantra, Sarva Mangalam. At every level, as every state, I am blessed auspiciousness. Om Tat Sat. Thank you for being blessed, beautiful.
नामों में तेरा नाम बड़ा, हर युग में तेरा काम बड़ा। नामों में तेरा नाम बड़ा, हर युग में तेरा काम